On this Friday installment of Locked On Texans, top takeaways from Houston Texans minicamp.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday installment of Locked On Texans, your team every single day. As always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis, and I actually have a special co-host today, Mr. Brian Bearfield. You guys know him as Big Sarge, Texans beat reporter for Big Sarge Media, LLC. Sarge, what's going on, man? And welcome back to Locked On Texans.
Man, look at here. First of all, thank you all for having me on. I really appreciate you, opening up this door and giving me the opportunity to talk some Texans football today. I'm just happy to be back, man. I told y'all once before, y'all got to stop treating me like that cousin that's still. Y'all treat me like that cousin that's still, and then y'all just be like, well, we'll invite him over, but make sure you watch him. And then we won't tell him about the next 2 or 3 events. Then we'll have him over again. That's only because Big Mama told him that we was having a family reunion in my house. So I'm gonna need you and John Hickman to get yourselves prepared. I'm gonna need. Listen, hey, for all the fans, viewers, and listeners out there, ain't that how I go?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna need you all to petition Cody and John to have Sarge on at least once a week.
Oh my goodness, that man said once a week.
Once a week, man. I need a weekly segment, man.
But you're here today, and the reason why you're here today is because we want to continue talking about mandatory minicamp. Because as you guys know, as a credential media member, like myself, Big Sarge has been out there every single day, whether when it's raining like how it was on Thursday, we had to go inside the bubble, or when it was hot like it was Wednesday and last Thursday. Big Sarge had an opportunity to get I like to call this time a preview of what the Houston Texans will look like for the 2024 campaign. So on today's show, later on today, we're going to close out this installment, with some early training camp thoughts, because the next time we see them, it will be the start of training camp. And then in the second segment, we definitely going to, touch on Stefon Diggs. So I think he had a lot of interesting things to say when we had an opportunity to speak to him on Wednesday. But Big Sarge, let's get this party started. When you take a look at the Houston Texans over the 3 days we was out there doing mandatory minicamp, what was your top takeaways? And let's start on the offensive side of the ball if we can.
Well, wait, before I even start talking about either side of the ball, let me talk about both sides of the ball real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Cody, I haven't seen the Houston Texans that competitive as far as OTAs and minicamps concerned. I haven't seen them competitive going against one another, talking that much trash in probably about 4 to 5 years. It has been a very long time since I've sat back and I'm like, okay, well, this was voluntary, the OTAs. The minicamp was mandatory, and everybody was in attendance. Some people couldn't practice because they're still dealing with injuries, off-season injuries. But like the people who were out there, the people who were participating, the players who were participating, it was very, very, very competitive. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And so to answer your question, to start off with the offensive side of the ball, I've got to go to the offensive line and say Kenyon Green.
Yes, sir. One of the stars.
Kenyon Green. Here's a young man that even though he only got a chance to play in his rookie season, a lot of people have counted him out. And I've always said that you can't judge what a player is going to be after their rookie season. Mm-hmm. Not only that, you and John have brought this to the attention of a lot of Texans fans, Texans media, NFL fans and media, that he went up against a gauntlet of defensive tackles that most of them, I think 1 or 2 of them made All-Pro, made the Pro Bowl. They all got extensions. And so here's a young man coming in as a rookie having to go up against these defensive tackles. And so here's the thing that gets lost, and I hope that I could say this on this show, Cody. here's the thing that gets lost. Yes, Kenyon Green started out as the starting offensive left guard for the Houston Texans, right alongside of the left tackle Pro Bowler Laramie Tunsil.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't remember that Justin Britt played one game? The
Yeah.
starting center for the Houston Texans played one game.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, Scott Quessenberry was, pushed right into the lineup. And so now you have a rookie at left guard and you have an inexperienced center. No matter how many years he's been in the league, he still isn't used to starting and playing at that position. And so now Kenyon is learning on the fly, all the while trying to help the person to the right of him. So Laramie is helping Kenyon. Kenyon is helping Quessenberry. And then by the same token, also has to take on this, defensive tackle that's in front of him that is like, yo, hey, man, like I'm playing for a contract. So his rookie year, is really not indicative of what he's going to be. I remember having a conversation with Kenyon Green during his rookie year, and he said, Sarge, this is something that I'm used to. He said, when I first got to Texas A&M, he said, go back and look. He said, my rookie year, he said, I was put through the ringer. He said, I was learning lessons on the fly. He said, but what happened after that? He said, consensus 2-time All-American. He said, so all I need to do is to get acclimated to playing in the NFL, getting myself used to playing in the NFL, and I'm going to show you what I can do. And so watching him in OTAs, watching him in minicamp, you can tell. This is how I always tell people to judge a person who they got their eye on, who they don't really believe in. Watch how they come back the next season when OTA start or when minicamp start. Kenyon came back in really good shape. And I think that you and John talked about this as well, but he came back in really good shape. By him getting in shape, what did D'Amico tell us the other day? He said he's in really good shape, and all he needs to do is to be on the field. He has the opportunity to compete. All he has to do is stay healthy and be on the field. And when I'm looking at Kenyon, even during the Wednesday's practice, I'm saying to myself, look at how fluid he's moving. You can tell that he put in a lot of work in the offseason. So Kenyon Green, I've been hearing a lot of great things about Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce in the offseason work that he's put in, he's come back. If you look at him, he's come back in great shape. And I'm wanting to see how he's going to react once training camp starts, because of course, Joe Mixon is right now the starter. We can just pencil him in as the starter, but here's a guy, Dameon Pierce, is coming back that's in great shape, that has rededicated himself to the game. And the most important part for Dameon Pierce is he's finally playing in a system 2 years in a row.
Yep.
He knows, okay, this is how we run. Okay, this is how the blocking schemes go. This is what the linemen are going to do. This is my responsibility in this offense. Okay, now I don't have to keep switching. Well, what am I doing here? What am I doing there? Oh, well, this lineman is in here and that lineman in here. This lineman doesn't understand that. He's come back and he's dedicated himself. And the last person I got, because it's easy to talk about Nico. It's easy to talk about Tank. Later on, you said we're going to talk about Stefon Diggs. I can talk about Joe Mixon. I can talk about CJ. But I want to talk about these guys who I want people to keep an eye on during training camp. And the last person that I definitely want people to keep their eyes on is John Mechie III.
Yes, sir.
Now, I know that it sounded like I'm doing a lot of name dropping here. It sounds like I'm doing a lot of flexing. And look, for the people who are watching, I am making, you can see what I'm doing. For the listeners, I am flexing. John Mechie told me last season, he said, Sarge, there isn't a route that has been invented that I can't run. There isn't a route that has been invented that I can't run and get open. What did CJ tell us during the press conference? John Mechie looks great. His ability to start and stop is amazing. The routes that he's running looks good. And some people will say, well, Sarge, they was just 7-on-7 and a couple of full team drills. They didn't even have the pads on. When you're running them routes, you ain't got to have that. The pads ain't got nothing to do with your route running. He looks good. I'm glad to see because we all remember the Alabama game. I mean, the Alabama years. Excuse me. We remember the Alabama years, and we remember what John Mechie did after when him and Bryce Young was together. When they played together for the first time, they weren't really in sync. And I think I might have said this before. They weren't really in sync until after they lost to A&M.
Mm-hmm.
After they lost to A&M, both of them was able to get on the same page and take off until he, suffered his injury in the SEC championship game, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And so now and think about it, coming into the league, he had to deal with coming off of injury. And then he had to deal with the cancer. He had to deal with the chemotherapy. This is really going to be his rookie season.
Don't call him a rookie now. You don't like that. No, sir.
I won't call him a rookie, but I also can't put a lot of stock into last year, especially as someone who has had to deal with the person firsthand who went through chemotherapy. I know the type of toll that it takes on your body, but he looks like he has gotten a whole lot better, and he's another person who is dedicated. So Kenyon Green, Damian Pierce, and John Mechie, yeah, those are the ones that stood out to me in minicamp.
It's winner take all season in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. New customers right now get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 for you to use to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday installment of Locked On Texans. I have with me, as you guys see and hear, my good friend Brian Bearfield. You guys know him as Big Sarge, part of Big Sarge Media LLC. Sarge, I know I said I wanted to get your thoughts on the defensive side of the ball, but I'm actually want to save that when we look at our early training camp thoughts. But since you said a lot about the offensive side of the ball, I think this is the perfect time to segue into Stefon Diggs. We finally had an opportunity to not only see him during mandatory minicamp, but we finally had an opportunity to talk to him. And before I give my thoughts, I want to know, what was your number one takeaway when we had an opportunity to literally sit and listen to what Stefon Diggs had to say, not only about his departure from the Buffalo Bills, but also joining the Houston Texans?
Cody, I'm a firm believer in, if you really want to get to know someone, you get a face-to-face with them.
Mm-hmm.
You look at them. I'm a firm believer that the eyes are the windows to the soul. And so if I can look you in your eyes as we talking, and I can get a really good feel on the type of person that I believe that you are. Now, I don't know Stefon Diggs personally, and like he said the other day, that's true. Not yet, but once that locker room opens, I do plan on spending a lot of time just chopping it up with him. But being the first time that we've gotten a chance to actually talk to him, and I was lucky enough to be able to sit in the seat that I sat in, that first seat, and I'm directly in front of him. So as he's talking and as he's answering, my questions, I'm looking directly at him, and I'm saying to myself, here's a young man that I think all he really wants to do is just play football. That's all he really wants to do. He didn't come off as people has labeled him in the past as a diva. He didn't come off as, I'm coming in and this is going to be my offense. I'm running the wide receiver room that CJ needs to make me his first look. He didn't come in. It didn't appear to me that that's how he's going to be. And that's why I asked him the question about being a mentor. Because now he's at an age where, I was telling somebody this earlier today. The Texans actually got the best of both worlds when it comes to Stefon Diggs. They still got a talented wide receiver who is on a prove-it deal. He's on a prove-it deal. And at his age and for the amount of years that he's been in the league, I don't want to say that he's on the downside. I don't want to say that, because he still has the ability to come in as a top 5 wide receiver. But when we look at football years, we start to get to wonder, okay, so when does the decline start? So now Stefon Diggs is coming in. He basically has to also prove not only to the Houston Texans, but to everybody, all the other teams that are out there looking at him, that I deserve a multi-year contract. I deserve to get the type of money that these wide receivers are getting now. I need a contract that's, like bigger than Nico's. I need one that's bigger than Jalen Watt. I need one that's bigger than Justin Jefferson. And here's the funny part about it. With the team and the team that he's on with the Houston Texans, and the amount of offensive weapons that they have, with the quarterback that they have, with the offensive coordinator that they have, that Nick went out and got multiple pieces for, to heighten what they did last season, he's going to be able to do that. And so looking at him and listening to him talk, and here's the thing that stood out. I don't know how many people caught it when he was talking in the press conference, but he kept mentioning Tank Dell.
Mm-hmm.
He kept mentioning Tank. He kept mentioning Tank. And during the when we had to come from outside and go inside the bubble, I have pictures of him talking to Tank and him talking to Mechie on numerous occasions. And so I don't feel like he's one of those, that he's that wide receiver that's trying to come in and take over the team. And I believe that, he's with a coach who's played the game. He's with a coach who understands how to handle and how to talk, not only the lingo of the player, but also as the coach. And so I feel like we're going to see a different Stefon Diggs, because I feel like he's landed in the best situation possible. I don't think that he had that in Minnesota. I don't think that he had that in Buffalo, what he has right here. And what the Houston Texans has done as far as building this family type chemistry inside of that locker room with CJ, with Will, with Laramie, with Titus, with Shaq, with Nico and Tank, what they've done inside of that locker room, that's inviting to someone who has been, labeled as a diva, who has been outcasted from his last two teams. I don't see him coming in being disruptive. And I got all of that, Cody, just by talking to him that one time in the press conference.
I 100% agree with you, Sarge. And, for me, it was more so, how much was those labels, him being a quote unquote diva, him being an outcast in Minnesota and, Buffalo, how much was that, unfair criticism? Because for me, it was like, not only is this young man, he just want to play football, but he also just wants to win. And that was the number one thing. Well, one of the things that I was looking forward to when we had an opportunity to talk to him, because, since he got traded to the Houston Texans, I believe, on April 3rd. So you're looking at a situation where we talked to Nick Caserio on 2 occasions. We talked to D'Amico a couple times, CJ about, 2 occasions and stuff. And I think Will Anderson Jr. too. I believe we had spoke to him right after the trade got done. And every time we asked in a variety of different ways, how is it working with Stefon? What are some of the intangibles that you love? What are some of your early impressions of Stefon? They always talked about his personality and his desire to win. And I also, when I was, I was sitting right behind you, and almost every question that he was asked, he kept talking about wanting to win a championship. Yes. And that goes back to something that John said on this show, both on and off air. Like, for him, he looks at Stefon Diggs in a way that he looked at Terrell Owens. Not talent-wise, but more so the unfair criticism, just dating back to Terrell Owens just wanting a fair opportunity to win, plain and simple. And that is basically what we saw out of Stefon Diggs, because for me, of course, like you, once we start hearing, rumblings that, hey, Stefon might be available to the Texans. Hey, the Houston Texans have acquired Stefon. We started doing our research, talking to people, and everything that we got back was, he's this, he's that. He's not going to get along with your quarterback. Give it a year and everything is going to blow up. We heard all this criticism, but he just wants a fair opportunity to win. And, the question I asked about what are some of the things that you learn from your past experience, I asked him that just to see whether or not he was going to whether or not he was going to look at what he could have done better, look at himself in the mirror. And the fact that he said, look, I'm a talented player, but one thing he learned in Minnesota, one thing that he learned at Buffalo was the fact that you could always take that extra moment to, whether it's meeting with your quarterbacks, getting that extra work with, just basically saying that he's going to put in that extra work, whether by himself or with the team or with the coaching staff. This young man, all he wants to do is win. And like you say, Sarge, at the end of the day, it's just a situation where he's older, he's wiser, he's still a damn good wide receiver. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy, that young man is good. But at the same time, he's also coming in more experienced and just basically relying upon the teachings that he has had so far throughout his career, which I think this year is going to be 10 years.
Another thing too, Cody, is I think what the Houston Texans have provided for Stefon Diggs by trading for him and bringing him here is you don't have to come here with pressure. There isn't a lot of pressure on Stefon because he's only here for 1 year. And the amount of money that they're paying him, they're like, okay, now if he'd have came here and they'd have kept the contract, I think that would have been a little bit more added, a little more added pressure on him. But I mean, if you just look at it, Cody, I mean, there's pressure on him to perform at his position. It's not pressure on him to carry. It isn't like it was in Buffalo. Oh, it's Josh Allen and then Stefon Diggs. Here is CJ, it's Joe, it's Nico, it's Tank, it's Dalton. You got Laramie, you got Titus. Like, he's not going to be the center. You got Tank. He's not the focus of the offense, because when people watch the Houston Texans this season, what they're going to be looking at first is, how is CJ performing? Then after CJ, well, Nico, then Tank is back, and now you got Joe Mixon in the backfield, so he doesn't have to come in and be the superstar of this team. All he has to do is be a star, which he has always been in his career. Look, throw away everything about what he's done, what he did on social media, how he reacted. He didn't want to talk to the media. Okay, we get all of that. But in Minnesota, he had to be the superstar. In Buffalo, he had to be the superstar. Here, he just has to be a star. And think about it, Cody. Not only does he blend in on the offensive side of the ball with all of that offensive talent, when you look at the Houston Texans as a whole, and I just named a lot of the offensive side, well, when these media members and these fans get to talking about the Houston Texans, they can't leave out Derek Stingley Jr. They can't leave out Will Anderson. They
Kamara Lassiter.
Right, Neil, Aziz. Like, there's a lot of really good players and talented players on this team. And these players are names. See, in Buffalo, it was Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs, and then you had to think about who else was there? Oh yeah, Gabe Davis or Ed Oliver. I'm not taking anything away from that Buffalo team, but there's a lot more names here in Houston than it is in Buffalo. So all he has to do is blend in, do his job, and everything else will take care of itself.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen. Before we close out this Friday installment of Locked On Texans, I know we spent a majority part of this show talking about the offensive side of the ball. But Sarge, let's switch over to defense really quick. What were some of your top takeaways during minicamp when you take a look at the defensive side of the ball?
Christian Harris.
That's it?
Christian Harris. Nope. Christian Harris. My God. Now listen, don't get me wrong. Aziz Al-Shair, right? That's how you Aziz. I'm just gonna say Aziz. He is going to bring something to this defense that they have been missing for a very long time, and that is a leader in the middle. I mean, because that middle linebacker position, Cody, when you look at it, at any good middle linebacker, they always command the respect and they know everything that's going on. Everybody else's responsibility, everything that they're supposed to be doing on top of knowing everything that the offense is doing. So that's what Aziz has brought so far from what I've seen, because like I said earlier, they didn't have the pads on. Of course they didn't have the pads on, but it's just some things that you can just pick up on and you just notice, and you're like, I'm watching him point things out, move around people, telling people, where to go, what to do, what the offense is about to do. And I say that to, and I preface that using Aziz to say that standing next to him, soaking all of that up, is Christian Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And, we talked about players putting in work in the offseason. It looks like he's gotten quicker. It looks like he's gotten quicker. He's gotten faster. And it looks like he knows his responsibilities. Like coming into the season last year, with a new head coach, a new defensive system, a new defensive coordinator, you're still trying to get used to what this person wants. I knew what to do when I was under this leadership, but what do they want? And having a coach, like I said earlier, who's a former player but played the position, is able to tell him, hey, man, just go out there and play. What did D'Amico told us during the press conference? When he plays with his instincts, he's unstoppable. Because he's one of the fastest players out there. He's one of the smartest players out there. His quickness is going to definitely be able to use will be used to his advantage. Now, I don't want to take anything away from former linebacker Denzel Perryman, who was here, but he's not Aziz. I'm just going to go on record by saying that, and I'm pretty sure either him or somebody from his camp is going to reach out to me, because you know how these former players don't like everybody else can say something, but when Sarge say something. But
my goodness.
As I digress, Denzel Perryman showed him how to be tough in this league. Aziz is showing him how to be smart. And so on that defensive side of the ball, I'm definitely looking at what those middle linebackers are going to do now. And I'm glad that you brought up the defense, because I have an article dropping. Today that talks about, the title of it is "I Got Your Back," and it talks about how disruptive edge rushers Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter can be, because they know they got Aziz and Christian behind them. And then behind them, you got Derek Stingley Jr. You got a revamped, a motivated Jalen Petrie. But my article, I Got Your Back, is because now these two guys, and Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr., you remember what Will said in the press conference, where he said, sometimes we'll just meet at the quarterback and just hug and be like, man, nice to really see you back here. And I put out a picture earlier of those two, and I said, I bet you, and this is before Will said that, I said, I bet you the conversations they have is, hey, look, I'm going to meet you at the quarterback. We're going to finish this conversation. And so now that you have those two guys being able to not have to worry about what's going on behind them, because they know that Aziz is going to take care of it. They know that Christian Harris is going to take care of it. They know that Stingley is going to lock down one side of the field. So those are that. I started with Christian Harris, and I moved to the edge rushers, and I said that because for as much as we talk about that offensive unit, that defensive unit moves in just as much unison as the offensive unit. So when we talked about the offense and we talked about how Stefon Diggs can just come in and blend in, well, guess what? With that defensive line that the Houston Texans have, Danielle Hunter is going to come in and he's going to be Danielle Hunter, but he's going to fit right in. And here's the good part about it. The one thing about having Danielle Hunter here, as great as he is a talent, he's also still willing to listen. And if you go back to Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans, and then you go back to just D'Amico Ryans, go back and look at some of those edge rushers that D'Amico had under his system, and look what he did for them. A lot of people get lost in the sauce when it comes to that. But I put it like this. Charles Omenihu was outcasted from the Texans for no reason at all. I will go on record by saying that Charles Omenihu did not do anything wrong.
Let's not revisit that.
he got ousted from Houston and then went to San Francisco and did what?
Had a hell of a season.
You see what I'm saying? So now you got a guy, Danielle Hunter, that's motivated. And I will say this. I'm glad that he said that he's looking forward to battling Titus Howard, because he's only going to make Titus better, and Titus is only going to make him better. Cody, I'm just, I'm excited. It's like I'm excited. I don't want to put too much expectations on the Houston Texans, but when you just look at their roster from a whole, like I didn't even have to see OTAs or minicamp to know that these guys got something special. They got something brewing over that's special.
Nah, I get your point about not wanting to put expectations on them. And like you said, when you look at your roster, and I've been telling the listeners and viewers this basically all week. Yeah. Like, you could look at the roster, you could look at it on social media, you could play with them on Madden. But until you see CJ take the field with Joe Mixon and Dalton Schultz in the backfield, you got Stefon and Nico on the outside, Tank in the middle, in the slot. Until you see, and we had a clear opportunity to do so on Thursday due to the weather, so they put us in the bubble. We finally had a good opportunity to see the offense and the defensive line go through their drills and stuff. But until you see Will Anderson on one side, the Neil Hunter on the other, until you see Shazier and Christian Harris line up on 7-on-7. And look, we all know how good Darius Stingley Jr. is going to be. Look, I don't know about you, Sarge, but me and John got a saying on this show. We are expecting an all-pro caliber season, as long as he stay healthy, from Stingley. But until you see a rookie that was drafted in the second round make not one, not two, but 3 pass breakups doing minicamp, and to your point, Sarge, with a rejuvenated Jalen Petrie, there's excitement and a feeling that you get to the point. It's like, look,
do you ask yourself, though, should I feel that way?
Not only should I feel that way, but I think I've came to the realization that it's possible that they could achieve something that we never thought the Houston Texans would be able to achieve, especially this soon, especially after how the last few years have went. Now, Sarge, you say AFC Championship? I'm going to say
New Orleans. We're going to New Orleans.
That's what I'm thinking. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if we in my home city and we sitting up inside the Superdome and the Houston Texans are representing the AFC. That's all I'm going to say. Because, and this is something, and Sarge, you will let me know, because you've been covering this team, longer than I have, and you was around the last time we looked at them and was like, well, if everything goes right, maybe. But this is the first time me as a reporter, watching this team, even going all the way back to Andre Johnson and J.J. Watt in their heyday and watching them as a fan. This is the first time that I'm saying to myself, everything for the Houston Texans is in place. Ownership is on one accord. You have the head coach. You have the coordinator. You damn sure have the offensive coordinator. You have the quarterbacks. You have the weapons. You have the talent on both sides of the ball. You have the depth. Like, everything is working out in the Texans' favor. And I get it. I understand it that, we're going to have to see everything, fall in line, starting in training camp mid-July. And I know the Texans are going to go through their ups and downs at the start of the season. But Sarge, I always go back to, what is this team going to look like midway through the season, towards the end of the season, when they hit their stride?
Cody, I will say this, and I know that it's blasphemous sometimes to say this in Houston, because there's still a lot of people that are upset. So let me preface my statement by putting my hand over my heart first, right? Cody, this organization hasn't seen talent like they have right now since the Houston Oilers.
I agree.
When they had with Warren Moon and that hop out, they haven't had
because
this type of talent. And hold on, I mean, cut you off. The Houston Texans has never had this amount of talent on both sides of the ball.
Yes.
They had talent, but they haven't had this amount of talent on both sides of the ball like that.
And that's why I also point out what's going on with ownership, what's going on the sideline with the coaching staff and stuff. Because I know people hate bringing his name up, but let's just take a look at the best season of Deshaun Watson in the Texans. What was it? 2019? I think that was the year when they won like 10 straight games or something like that. If it wasn't 19, maybe it was 18 or 19.
Was when they won 4 games.
Well, I'm not talking about personally. I'm talking about with the team, to where it was like, and I can't remember, it was 18 or 19, to where even though, you know, you had the quarterback, you was always like, I still don't know if I can fully trust it. Like, I still don't know. Put it like this. That team, whichever version of that team that was, them going to the AFC Championship game would have been their Super Bowl. Sarge, I don't know about you, and I understand that it goes a lot with the playoff seeding and stuff, and where they're going to play when it's cold, where they're going to play, you know, where it don't get too cold. But I'm expecting them to at least be in that conference championship game, man.
So, Cody, I'm gonna say this, and you're right. There's never been a time where when the Texans had a very good quarterback in number 4, they only had Hop.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, you had Will Fuller, and I'm not taking anything. I'm not here to talk down on Will Fuller, but I mean, we're not putting him in the top 1 or 2 tiers of wide receivers when he was playing. Even at his peak, we're not putting him in. He's not even a 2nd tier wide receiver in his peak to me, right?
I agree.
You never really had that running back. You never on the defense side of the ball. You had some very talented players, and then you had J.J. Watt, who was just a standout. But you had some, you know, but like you said, they never had that type of they never had that type of overall talent as a team. And now they have it, and it's crazy. It's crazy because, Cody, think about this. I've been thinking about I've been thinking about this lately, and I want you to think about it, and the viewers and listeners. That's how I got that right?
Mm-hmm.
Normally, John, viewers and listeners, Cody, viewers and listeners. I want you to think about this. CJ doesn't get hurt, right? Mm-hmm. CJ doesn't get hurt, and they win that Jets game, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't drop that game in Atlanta
and Carolina.
If they don't drop that game in Carolina, right? So that's 3 extra wins, right?
That's 13, I think.
So, with that being said, now they're not coming in as, you know, seated that low. They're not even. I think that, in all honesty, if you go back and you look at that season, they could have pushed for a number 1 seed with the Baltimore Ravens.
And that's gone along without you mentioning the injuries. That's gone along with you without mentioning that majority of the players that you was depending on, your most talented players, were either rookies or second year. And that also not taking into consideration that Bobby Slowick still going through his learning periods, trials and tribulations. Of the same thing with Costa Rica, right?
Matt Burke, first year college.
Matt Burke, like Sarge, like I when I think about what this team can be, not just in 2024, but even beyond, I just get like lost, because it's like I feel like any expectations that I place on them is kind of like cheating them in a sense. And that's why I say, look, I'm expecting them to be in that conference championship game, you know. Yeah. And I think the only thing that can stop this team as of right now, and look, I get it, it's early, we got to see how all this play out. Training camp starts mid-July and everything, man. But look, right now, and I say this to the Texans fans a lot, y'all deserve this, man. And enjoy it. Enjoy it, because I know I'm gonna enjoy covering it.
and real quickly too, Cody, the thing that the Texans have going, one of the biggest things that the Texans have going for them right now, and you know, from right now and moving forward, is that their young talent is their leaders.
Yes.
Their young talent isn't just let me come in, blend in, and keep it moving. Their young talent on both sides of the ball is like, yo, we ready to win. We ready to win right now. Side note, before we get off here, hey, man, let me tell y'all something. CJ can talk as much trash as he wants to because he puts in the work. The proof was in the pudding last season, and he's only improving and getting better. I love it. I love the fact that he's talking trash. Cody, it was to no surprise to either one of us when they's like, oh, CJ's talking trash. I was like, y'all should hear him in the locker room.
Oh my God.
Basketball.
Oh my God.
We're talking about basketball, dressing, walking, talking.
Yeah, that's all he do, man.
Anything that he's involved in is a competition and he wants to win.
Yes.
So this isn't anything new about, well, you know, CJ got to watch what he say. No.
You want me to tell you why he don't got to watch what he say? Because his all-time favorite players that got right there above your head, Kobe Bryant. And you saw how much noise Kobe used to talk.
All the time.
So there you go. And I love it. I hope he talk more trash. Keep talking trash. You know, I love cockiness. You know, I love it.
Right. And those other people that talk trash, follow him. You can talk trash when you can back it up. Michael Jordan talked trash because he could back it up. Kobe talked trash because he could back it up. Peyton Manning talked trash. People don't realize that. Tom Brady talked trash. One day you got to get with former Houston Texan player Indy Kalu and ask him about the trash talking to Peyton Manning. He'll tell you. Well, he told Indy almost sacked him one time. He told Indy, "Hey, nice try, man. Keep it up. You could, you may get me one time, but keep it up, man. You did a really good job."
Oh man, dog. But that's going to conclude this Friday installment of Locked On Texans. I know we really didn't dive too much into training camp, but we're going to have a lot of training camp previews and talks coming up. But listeners, viewers, you guys seen the emotion when we start thinking about what this team could be. And that's the feel of the Houston Texans, man. And I can't wait for you guys to see them, doing open practices, doing preseason, doing the regular season, because you guys are going to get that same feel. But Big Sarge, before we close out, please tell everyone where they can follow you at on all your social media platforms. And of course, please be sure to tell them about where they can find your work.
You can follow me at Big Sarge Sports with a Z at the end on the app formerly known as Twitter. And on Instagram at Big Sarge Sports with the Z at the end. And you can follow all my work over at BigSargeMedia.com. John, I miss you, man. Don't do me like that, John. I miss you.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. And please be sure to check out my co-host, John Hickman, at John_Hickman12. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.